Welcome to Just a Thought with Preston Baker. I want to take you on a journey. When I was young, I used to write poetry, I used to write songs, and I go back to maybe like fourth or fifth grade. My first song was a rap. It was called Who's the Man? Who's the man with the master's plan? I was in the third grade. But then I started writing like these R&B type songs and maybe like the fourth, fifth grade. And what I started doing in the fifth grade and the sixth grade, I had a radio and we had a tape deck back then. I put the tape in, so I would get a tape and of a rapper or a singer, and I would write all of the words down. Like I would write the songs. Like you could open and you would see the lyrics to the songs, but I wanted to write it down because that's how I would remember it by me writing it. So I would write it down and then I would memorize the song. A couple years later, I started writing raps because I'm writing down a lot of Tupac songs, Biggie songs, Tribe Called Quest, Brand Nubian, Grand Puba, uh, Public Enemy, uh, just different songs, all across the board. I mean, there was so many different different artists at the time, and that's just how I would do it. So as my journey progresses, I remember I never had a battle rap, and one of my friends that was in high school, he like I'm. This is like our first weeks of high school. I see him rapping with a group on the train, and I was just entertained that they were just like circling around him, listening, and I was like, man, I'm gonna do that. So I go back. And remember, I used to write songs by first copying the writers, so their songs are in my head, and then I start writing my own. And I took a little bit of a Biggie style of flow, and it was an Usher song the way he spelled his name in the song, and I did it the same way. And I planned for us to run into each other to have this battle. I never had a battle before, and so we're on the train, and I go up to the gentleman who became my friend during high school, right? He became my friend, and I'm like, "Oh, you rap?" And he's like, "Yeah, why you rap?" And I said, "Well, I do something." And he said, "Well, let's battle." And so we went proceeded to battle, and I had like this so commercialized rap, like it was like a Diddy thing, like like Jermaine Dupri. It was commercial, and he was more like Biggie, very lyrical and whatnot like that. But at that time, the crowd did like what I was doing because I was doing a performance with everything. But he was definitely a much better rapper. But it was kind of like they kind of tied us because of the situation, because of how I wrote the song. But either way, we became friends. We made songs together, and that was our journey. And this is my love in the hip hop, right? Like this is me growing up, doing music, and all of these things. And that's why what I'm saying now, what I'm going to say, I take it personal. I wanted everybody to know my story and my journey there, right? So we all have our experiences, and music really is a big part of our youth, our adulthood. I mean, it as you get older, it has the memories. When you're younger, it's part of the journey, right? So um I just take it personal on some of the things I see because I feel like hip hop has become a global phenomenon. I imagine that the rappers that started hip hop, the MCs, the break dancers, the DJs. I don't imagine that they thought the whole world would be involved in the culture. Like I can't even imagine them thinking it would leave the Bronx, right? And then the people in LA, I don't think they imagined they would leave Compton. And I'm not talking about today, I'm talking about back then. I'm talking about the 70s, the 80s, thinking it would be songs in Japan, like they can go to a concert in Germany, in Africa, right? Like I don't think people could imagine that. And it's the music has grown to a global phenomenon. And I'm proud to be a part of that culture, growing up in that culture. And that's why I think that we also have to be responsible for that culture. And we have to protect the culture. We have to protect where it goes, who's controlling it, who's controlling narratives, and we have to be very intentional about that. So I feel like in this day and time, the diversity of the culture is being kind of like held back, right? So you have you have different versions of hip hop. I mean, we've made our own titles over the years. Where you had gangster rap, you had backpack rap, and all that kind of stuff. But the point is, there's different voices, and hip hop represents all. Well, it's supposed to represent all the voices, and it seems like what's being promoted mostly through these record labels and record companies and radio stations is only one side of the story, which gives us a perception of the communities that we come from. And it's all, and I'm not knocking any rappers, but it's all one-sided in terms of like strippers and hustlers, and there's so many pieces in the community, and that's not the only piece. I'm just be real. And it's influential because even when we're younger, we're adapting to what we hear and what's popular. And so we start to create music in that way. And a lot of times you have community members that live in a lifestyle that's not their lifestyle, right? And so I'm not going to talk mainly about that. But what happens is now you have a couple of gangster rappers, right? Like these kids are coming up 20, 21 years old, gangster rappers. And then I look on these media platforms, and this is where I think accountability has to be had. I'm not looking at that 21-year-old to be responsible for hip hop. I'm looking at that 21-year-old to go through their journey. Like I want them to go through their journey. Whatever that journey is, they're going through that journey. But then you have these podcast hosts, you have these radio hosts, disc jockeys. For the most part, I see them, they're in their 40s, they're in their 50s. These are the mentors and the mentees. These are the people that should be guiding these 21-year-olds, 22-year-olds coming into rap, making a lot of money and doing what they're doing. But what I do hear from them is always like an instigation of issues, right? So one rapper comes on the radio station and they're like, yo, so what happened with you and such and such? What did he say to you? What got you go? And it's kind of like instigating more drama. So now this person, in that 40 or 50 years person's history and their journey in hip hop, they would have saw Tupac get killed. They saw Biggie get killed. They saw a lot of rappers get killed behind words, behind conversations, what somebody said in a magazine that launched off a beef between two communities that would never see each other unless hip hop was involved, right? Because they might be from different cities, different states, but it never had to get there. And it's not their it's not just their fault. Like, I don't look at it for the youth. I don't look at it for them. I look at it from the OGs, right? That's what I look at. I look at these people that are sitting there talking to them, coaching them. They're interviewing them. They can pull back. They can say, man, you don't have to go that route. I saw one of the things that impressed me the most. One of the things that impressed me the most was Wallow. For $1 million worth of game, Gilly the Kid and Wallow. And I'll never forget, he was talking to Young Thug, the rapper that he went to jail and had the situation with Gunna and everything of that nature. It's big in the news. But he was talking to him as a guy. Like, man, you shouldn't do this. You should go this route. You don't want to do this. This is Wallow, someone who's spent 20 years in prison, came out of prison, and him and his cousin Gilly the Kid basically started a podcast, and he really spoke truth into Young Thug. And I wish at that time he probably would have listened, because he might have made some changes, or maybe it was too late. But either way, he took the time out to give him a coach, give him a mentorship, because Young Thug is a young dude to him, right? The Young Thug is a young guy. Yeah, he's made millions, but maybe the way he's moving, maybe the things he's doing. And that's what I'm talking about. Us being accountable for hip hop. And that's how we keep this thing going forward, right? So I'm a product of it. I'm a product of this community, because I grew up listening to the music. I still listen to the music. I'm into the culture. But I just want to see the people that are at the gate, holding the door, holding the reins. Make sure as they get these young guys in here who are green. You could be, there's people that's, let's be real. There's people that grew up in a neighborhood, live in a neighborhood, never left the neighborhood, never been to another state, never been to another country. So this world is green. They getting exposed to money. They traveling. They're experiencing like they never had. And the main thing they need is someone to say, man, while you moving around, don't do this. This can happen. This is what's going to happen. You got to be careful. Instead of encouraging the beef, be like, man, how can we settle this down? Like, I've seen you and this person had, I'm not going to name no names, because I don't want to get, this ain't a clickbait thing. This is me talking about hip hop. Instead of saying, I saw you and New had this, yo, what's going on with you guys? How can we work this out? Can we get on the line? Because let's get this, let's get on the line. Let's make this happen. Let's work this out. That's accountability. That's holding. I mean, I want anybody online right now, take a look at how many rappers died in from 2020 to 2025. And I want you just to look every year, and you just see the numbers. Crazy. It's ridiculous. It's the most dangerous form of entertainment in the world. Being a rap artist. Think about that. Like, being a rapper, a poet, you writing poetry is a dangerous sport. And it's the youngest genre of music, but now we have some OGs now. We have some people here that can say, oh man, from my experience, this ain't the route to go. How can we guide you on this? And how can I support you? Because the best thing for you to do right now is to focus on building your brand, supporting your family, your friends, getting them in line instead of being destructive. Because there's so many ways to make money in hip hop, and it doesn't have to be controversial in the terms of getting into a situation where you have a rapper like King Von and Quando Rondo running into each other and someone gets killed over a fight. That could have been, that I imagine if I could look it up right now, there's going to be interviews of disses and conversations, and I'm not specifically talking about that beef, that situation. I'm just using an example. But you have these guys on the radio. Who's communicating with them? These are young kids coming off the street, coming into money, big money. For them, more money than most of them seen in their life. And then they're running into the same element, you know? So I saw Cam say on his show, Cameron, is what it is with Mace. And I saw him say, you know, New York is the toughest to New York. But when you go out of town, it's different energy. That's the same way everywhere. You from Compton. You think you the baddest because you from Compton. And then you get to Atlanta. It's a different world. You go to Atlanta and you think you're the baddest, you go to Compton. It's a different world. Same thing for Chicago, going to Florida, New York. Like every area has their bad areas. And to be honest with you, don't nobody has to prove themselves. You here to get money, tell your story, build a brand, take care of your family. You don't have to have a problem with Atlanta. You don't have to have a problem with Compton, New York, Chicago. You don't have, those problems don't have to be created. They don't have to be maintained. But you do have to have these radio jockeys and podcast hosts, even the record labels stepping in and holding us accountable to make sure that their journey goes smoothly, right? So that's my opinion. I blame hip hop on what's going on. And I'm not talking about the artists. I'm talking about the gatekeepers. All those gatekeepers. While y'all making money off of these kids, step up. Guide them the right way. Now, if they want to be flamboyant and spend money, that's their business. But this is the opportunity to push them in the right direction and help them to move forward. So it's not just the hip hop artists. It's those OGs. It's a lot of older disc jockeys, podcast hosts, and we got some culture vultures. I could talk about that later. I'm not gonna name no names, but we know who the culture vultures. I don't even watch their platforms because of it, because they incite, they create beefs, and or they prolong a beef that shouldn't be had. Sometimes, people still asking Ja Rule about 50 Cent. That's like 12 years ago, 15 years ago. Why are these conversations happening? Why are they bringing up these old things? It's not a positive thing, but it's just something for them to talk about, to get clicks on. They're willing to put people's lives on the line to get a click online. Think about that. Yo, I could go on for days. I'm not gonna go on, but I'm just saying, hip hop community, we have to hold these people accountable. People that grew up listening to the music, I believe, are all part of the hip hop community. Whether you're a rapper or you're a listener, person that buys the music, streams the music, right? I'm the person that Jay-Z went and purchased title. I want to support. I want to support Jay-Z. I'm still using title to this day, right? I believe in the culture. I love the culture, but I want us to be more responsible. I want us to hold ourselves accountable so we can provide a new wave of artists. And I also would like to see these same people open up the gateways. It's not just one type of music out there. Let everybody get shine. Because in the 90s and the 80s, it wasn't one thing. Even the 90s, you have NWA, Kid and Play, Public Enemy. They on the same stage. Let them all eat. You could have the gangster rap. You could have the backpack rap. You could have the commercial artists, all in the same building. It's all hip hop. Hip hop is a creation of stories, and it's everybody telling their story, and everybody ain't living the same life. So why we only sharing one-sided stories? So that's another problem. But that's also, again, disc jockeys, the podcasters, the gatekeepers, holding y'all accountable. We gotta hold you accountable. I don't look at the artist, because you get to select the artist. You get to guide the artist. So I hope you start to guide these artists, protect these artists, and protect the culture that is hip hop. Thank you. That's just a thought. This is Preston Baker. Make sure you like and subscribe. If you like what I said, you believe what I said, or believe in what I said, share it. Share it with somebody. I want everybody to hear this story. I want them to know we holding them accountable now. And that's my thought. Have a good one.